Hey everyone, let's talk for a few minutes about beliefs and claims and cognitive bias. These are both terms from Chapter 1, pages 1 to 6 and 14 to 19. So what are beliefs? Well, for our purposes, we're just going to use the term belief to be synonymous with judgment and opinion, something that is subjective. We'll talk about subjectivity in a moment. Beliefs are statements, not questions, and people tend to talk about their beliefs and their opinions in a way that indicates that they do not need any facts to support these beliefs or these opinions. They're totally subjective, which means their beliefs and opinions are based only on what they think, they feel, their emotional investment. What we're going to be working with this semester are called claims. Claims are kind of a argumentative term. We'll look at argumentative terms in a different lecture. And again, it's sort of synonymous with what you might have done in English 111 or in high school when you wrote a thesis statement, right? What is the point of your argument? We're going to use the term claim throughout, both when we're reading other arguments and when we're writing arguments of our own. As opposed to a subjective claim, which is just based on intuition, what someone feels, an objective claim is one that's always true or it's always false, regardless of how we feel about it. For example, statements like I have here, the moon is 238,900 miles from Earth. Until we have new evidence that that information has changed, right? Maybe the moon is slowly orbiting away from us or something. That's a fact. It's an objective claim. It can be measured. All right? So we're going to look at what's important about both facts and beliefs to your audience when you're writing and to yourself when you're trying to develop your own claims. So one of the things that we need to know about subjective claims is that they're relative. And what this means is that there is not one truth, and I use the distinction here of truth with a capital T as opposed to truth with a small t. There's not one truth with a capital T that's universal, that everyone believes. Right? I can't think of a single truth that everyone in the world subscribes to. Truths with a small t are different in different time periods. You've read any history, you find that people acted in different ways at different periods of time, and those ways were perfectly acceptable to that time period, and it is hard for us not to look at those beliefs from our 21st century perspectives and say that those beliefs are wrong. We do this all the time. Different cultures have different beliefs, different communities have different beliefs. What's okay in an academic world may not be okay out in industry. So these claims are what we call relative. Claims also can have to do with morality. Again, systems of what is ethically right and wrong change over time and change in different cultures. So sometimes it can be very difficult for us to reconcile our own morals if they don't align with either our community, sometimes not even our family, our community, and as we keep circling wider, our country, different cultures around the world. It can cause what we call cognitive dissonance, where we feel kind of adrift because our morals, what we think of as right and wrong, don't align with other people's. Okay. Francis Bacon had this idea, and others have as well, but I kind of like the way he puts it. And this is his statement paraphrased. The original was a little tougher to take apart. Humans have a deep-seated tendency to prefer information that confirms their existing positions. In other words, whatever stance we have, we go out looking for support for that particular stance, for that claim. If I have a claim about a particular solution that I'm making for a problem, I will probably ignore any data, any support to the contrary. Once they've come to a view about something, they see the evidence that supports that view and they overlook the evidence that doesn't. So you only tend to look for support that's confirming your own particular bias. And that's what we mean by bias, something that we believe. And I'm just going to quickly point out some of the terms related to cognitive bias from your textbook. We're not going to look at all of them. These are the ones I think are the most useful to us. The availability heuristic. A heuristic just means, and we'll use this term later in the term, something that helps us come up with ideas, that helps us think about something. So the availability heuristic says we believe those things that are most available to us. So if we hear that there are shark sightings, remember there were some shark attacks last summer or summer before along the North Carolina coast, we believe then that there were that lots of shark attacks, that there, every time you go in the ocean you were going to be bitten by a shark. We believed that because we heard those reports so frequently, even though the number of shark attacks is very, very small. I heard a speaker say that people being injured by pieces of furniture falling on them, such as large screen TVs, is a much more frequent occurrence than people being attacked by dogs, but we hear more about the dog attacks. So that shapes our belief of the probability of something occurring. What reports have we heard most recently and most frequently? False consensus effect tells us that the beliefs that we have on a particular subject, the attitude that we hold, is also held with those around us. Therefore, everybody must think that way. All right, it's a false effect, because just because you and those people around you feel a way about something does not mean the majority of people do. And these are all sort of fallacies. We'll talk more about fallacies later, but they're false things that you have to be careful not to fall into when you're doing your own research and your own writing. Another term is called negativity bias. And, I lost my bandwagon effect here. Looks like I lost a slide. The bandwagon effect is the ability to switch gears when other people are switching gears. So a bandwagon used to be a wagon that was pulled during a parade, something like a float, and everybody wanted to jump on it and be seen as being part of this wagon. So that's the kind of thinking of everybody else is buying this brand of clothing, I'm going to buy this brand of clothing, that sort of thing. But we tend to weigh negative information more strongly than positive. So more people will switch clothing brands if they're told that no one wears brand X anymore. So if we're given that negative, no one wears that brand anymore, I guess we get a little embarrassed. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm still wearing it. We're more likely to change the brand of clothes we're wearing than if we're told everyone is wearing brand X. So that's related to the bandwagon effect, which looks like that slide disappears. I'll get that back in. In-group bias is another negativity sort of thing. It's easier to find negative traits in those people who do not belong to our group. So if we see people in other groups, it's a lot easier to find negative things to say about them than positive. So just a couple more here. We also tend to see positive attributes in people in our own group and negative attributes for maybe the same situation in members of another group. This is called the fundamental attribution error. In the example I have here, I say, well, what if we have a member of our group failing? Maybe they're failing a particular course that we're all involved in. And if this person is a member of our group, we might attribute their failure to maybe they're having a rough patch, maybe things aren't going well for them at home, to things that are outside of their control. Whereas if a member of another group that is not part of us fails the course, we might attribute it to whatever stereotypes we have in mind for that other group. For example, maybe they're failing because they're lazy and you expect them to fail, or they're lacking intelligence, or whatever attribute that we assign to that. Finally, we have a couple of examples of psychological distortion that have to do with our confidence in our own abilities. The first one is called the overconfidence effect, and these two are closely related. We tend to see our abilities subjectively right? Based on no facts, just on our own ideas. That's what subjective means, remember. We tend to see our abilities subjectively in a higher light than the objective facts support. So even though objectively we're being told that we're not as good as we think we are, we tend to ignore that. So, or that we can or can't do something based on our actual abilities. I see this all the time in students who have very little time but assume that they can get 1,000 things done. Oh, I'm off work tonight, therefore I can do an entire research paper and get that to you tomorrow. Can't tell you how many times I've heard that one. And the better than average illusion. That people tend to think that we're better than other people in our group, that we're stronger or more capable, etc. All right. So what I've done in this presentation is giving you some basic ideas of how we see things in our world, how we come up with our beliefs and our claims, and we'll be working a lot more with these sorts of things throughout the semester.